Hey, welcome back to Next Stack Ninjas, the go-to podcast for mastering your health and wealth longevity. I'm your host, Rachael Van Pelt. Today, we're cutting through the chaos because some days it feels like the country we love is falling apart, doesn't it? The news cycle is relentless. The headlines are inflammatory. And if you spend even just 5 minutes scrolling through your phone, I think it's easy to feel like we're on the verge of collapse. The American dream, for a lot of people, it feels more like a fading memory than a real possibility. But here's the thing. We've been here before and we got through it. In fact, we didn't just survive, we rebuilt, reimagined, and helped usher in one of the most prosperous and innovative eras in human history. So today's episode is for my fellow Boomers and Gen Xers. It's a challenge to lead and claim our legacy, not as the generation that chose comfort, but as the generation that ushered in an era of abundance and reclaimed character. But let's start by acknowledging the obvious that yes, the world is chaotic, but chaos is not new. We've lived through Watergate, the Vietnam War, the Cold War, the AIDS crisis. We saw massive inflation in the 70s, gas lines around the block, the Iranian hostage crisis. We watched the Challenger space shuttle explode and the Trade Center attacked on live television. And yet, through all of that, we built. We developed personal computing, the internet, mobile technology, and medical advancements that our grandparents couldn't have dreamed of. We completely transformed the modern world. So then why does it feel like everything's unraveling now? Because what we're experiencing today isn't just economic hardship or political dysfunction, it's a cultural identity crisis. A deep discontent that comes from the intersection of spiraling inflation and inflammatory media. A crisis of trust in government and institutions, even in each other. People don't just feel like they can't get ahead, they feel like someone must be to blame. And the usual suspects, billionaires, politicians, the other side, they're all too easy to point the finger at. But blaming isn't building. And let's face it, we didn't get here overnight or by any one hand. But let's talk economics. The U.S. is without a doubt carrying a debt load that's unsustainable. Years of money printing, stimulus packages, and easy credit have created a false sense of prosperity. It's like using your credit card to buy groceries week after week. Eventually, the bill's going to come due with massive interest. In fact, the U.S. is going to pay nearly $1 trillion this year just on the interest for our debt alone. That's more than we're going to spend on defense. And while inflation might be cooling, the damage is already done. People are feeling the pinch. We all know that we're paying more for less. Home ownership feels out of reach for the next gen. College debt is crushing, and wages, they're just not keeping pace. That's real economic hardship. And it's enough to make people angry, anxious, and disillusioned. But here's the second layer of the crisis: the inflammation of our minds. We are constantly being bombarded with information, much of it sensationalized, biased, and outright false. Social media and even mainstream media don't make money by keeping us calm and rational. They make money by keeping us outraged and addicted to breaking news. Clickbait headlines, out of context clips, stories designed to confirm your bias and inflame your emotions. That's the business model. And it's working because it's designed to hijack the most primitive part of your brain, the fight or flight response, the tribal instinct, the fear that someone somewhere is out to get you and take what's yours. The threat we're feeling isn't just about dollars and debt, it's existential. Our brains are wired to treat uncertainty like danger. When the future feels unstable, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, it kicks in. That ancient circuitry floods us with stress hormones and sharpens our instinct to find a villain. It's no wonder blame becomes our reflex. But here's the real kicker. We're not only in a debt crisis, we're in a dopamine crisis. The media we consume, especially on social platforms, constantly spikes and crashes our brain chemistry, keeping us in a loop of outrage, reward, and withdrawal. And like any addiction, that warps our perception of what's real and what's urgent. When you combine real economic stress with a steady drip of fear and outrage, you get the perfect storm. It's tempting in times like this to look for drastic solutions. Some people flirt with the idea of revolution. Burn it all down, start over, abandon democracy, embrace authoritarianism or socialism or even secession. But let me be crystal clear. That path does not lead to freedom or prosperity. It leads to suffering. All we have to do is look at history. Real collapse isn't romantic. It's not some noble uprising. It's food shortages, black markets, and violence in the streets. It's the breakdown of civil society. It's neighbors turning on neighbors. And despite what the loudest voices online might tell you, most Americans don't want that. Most of us just want to live a good life. We want to raise our kids, our grandkids, feel safe in our homes, and have a little faith in the future. But faith doesn't mean passivity. It means choosing to invest in the better story, not the most viral one. It's tempting to believe that tearing everything down is the only path forward, but that's a false binary, isn't it? America doesn't need to be overthrown. It needs to be reimagined by those who remember what it was meant to be. It's not a perfect union, but a striving one. It's not a utopia, but a framework for freedom, innovation, and self-correction. The original blueprint wasn't the problem. It was the human tendency to forget the spirit behind it. And that's where we come in. Those of you who lived through eras of both division and rebuilding, you carry the memory of what's possible. What's possible when we fight for reform, not ruin. So what's the better story? It's that we live in a country that still has one of the most durable governing documents ever written, the U.S. Constitution. We still have a democracy, however imperfect. We have a system of checks and balances, and yes, it's messy, but it is still standing. The founders didn't build this country on the assumption that things would always be easy or harmonious, just the opposite. They built knowing that tension is a part of democracy. Not just a part, but integral. They also knew that progress is hard-won, and freedom requires responsibility. We don't need yet another revolution. We need a renewal of commitment to the principles that built this great country. That includes multiple parties, the tension of democracy, but also one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, right? Of course, we can argue that times are different. The rise of decentralization and advances in technology will most certainly come into play. From Web3 tech to the explosion of remote work and alternative education models, individuals have more freedom every day. Advances in AI and robotics are most certainly disrupting and reshaping industries. But they will also bring unprecedented opportunity for innovation and entrepreneurship. These technologies have the potential to 10x, probably even 1000x, the advances that we experienced over the past 50 years. So collapse isn't inevitable, it's optional, and so is renewal. The systems we once relied on are changing, but that doesn't mean they're disappearing. It means we get to help design what comes next. And if you're a boomer or Gen Xer listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen the before and after. You know what it's like to build from chaos. You've seen peace won, not handed out. You've experienced massive technological disruptions that led to increased prosperity and abundance. You have the wisdom, perspective, resilience, and grit that we need to ride this wave. But here's the thing. Boomers and Gen Xers built the very digital world that the younger generations are now struggling to navigate. We ushered in the smartphones and the social media platforms that now deliver dopamine to us nonstop. We turned the idea of global connection into a reality, but that same connectivity has morphed into a double-edged sword of endless information, shortened attention spans, and chronic comparison. Now, many young people feel overwhelmed, anxious, and unmoored, which is why we need to talk legacy. Not the one that's written in eulogies or on gravestones, but the one that shapes the world long after we're gone. Your legacy isn't behind you, it's ahead of you. You still have the most valuable currency in this cultural moment. You have wisdom, the kind of wisdom that comes from lived experience, resilience in the face of setbacks, civic engagement when it wasn't trendy, diplomacy in complex conversations, and faith. Faith in God, in yourself, in community, and the future. You've seen long cycles play out. You know that progress doesn't happen overnight and that real change often starts small. And leadership, it doesn't start in Washington. It starts at the dinner table, talking with your kids and grandkids about what matters. It starts in the boardroom, mentoring younger colleagues with encouragement, not ego. It starts at the ballot box, voting with a long view, not a short fuse. And here's the guiding principle we must pass on. The American dream was never meant to be about entitlement. It was always about contribution, about leaving things better than you found them. And that message, more than any viral post or protest sign, is what the generation needs most from us now. To get even more specific about where we can start, I think there are 5 areas that we can lead more effectively. First, I think we can model media discernment. Don't repost outrage clickbait. Don't forward half-truths. Be the person who asks, is this really true? Is this helpful? Does it unite or divide? We always have the option to escalate or de-escalate, so we must choose wisely. Second, let's be sure we don't shy away from intergenerational conversations. Get your kids or grandkids off their phones and talk, really talk. Ask them what they're afraid of, what they hope for. You might be surprised at how much you have in common. And be sure to share what you've learned from history and your personal experiences. We don't have to perpetuate historical amnesia and keep recreating the wheel. Third, let's get involved locally. We don't need to fix Washington. We need to start with town councils, school boards, community centers. Real change starts small, with calm, compassionate discussions among people who care about the future and the repercussions for the next generation. Fourth, let's vote wisely. Don't vote red or blue. Vote for competence, for character, for people who respect the Constitution and want to improve it, not burn it down. I realize this is easier said than done. I know it's near impossible to discern competence and character when everyone else is slinging mud, but keep your mind open and dig for the truth as best you can. This may be an impossible thing to do in our post-truth society, but unless there's a demand for truth, nobody's going to supply it. So we have to keep demanding it. Fifth, we need to mentor and invest in the next gen. Use your time, your wisdom, your resources to support the younger generation of builders, thinkers, and leaders. Your greatest legacy may be the person you help build character. In fact, I believe our greatest hope for the future is leaving behind a nation filled with men and women of great character, clear vision, and unwavering faith. Bottom line, this time of turmoil is not the end. It's just a turning point. And the narrative that we perpetuate about this moment is going to shape what happens next. So let's make sure the narrative is one we choose rather than media manipulated. We can choose sustainability over collapse, responsibility over blame, wisdom over reactivity. It's not time for older generations to peace out, but to step up, to model leadership in a world that feels like it's losing its way, to model compassion, not contempt, to disagree without dehumanizing, to build the country up, not burn it down. Because we've been here before and we can rise again. So if today's episode resonates with you, please be sure to share it with someone that you respect. As a community, we can make ideas go viral that aren't just dopamine triggers, but that build up our great nation again. That's it for today. Until next time, live well, love more, age less, my friends.